Hey everyone, and welcome to Top Think. Today we're going to learn about 7 conversation starters that work every time. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Accessible information. What's the easiest way to start a conversation with a complete stranger? Starting a conversation doesn't have to be difficult or complicated. With the right strategy, you can talk to anyone at any time. All you have to do is ask for information. In other words, ask someone a question you know they can answer. You might ask, do you know what time it is? Or what's the name of this venue? These simple, approachable questions bridge the gap between you and a stranger because it gives you a reason to interact. If you're asking for the time, the other person perceives you as friendly and non-threatening. They're more likely to respond and carry on a conversation, all because you led with a simple question about the time or the place. So the next time you're searching for the perfect opener, just try not to think so hard. Find someone you want to talk to and open the conversation with one easy question. It doesn't matter if you already know the answer to your question. You may ask the same question to 10 different people. The important thing is, you got your foot in the door. Your question created an opportunity to build a new connection with someone that you've never met. In other words, you open the door. All you have to do now is walk on through. Number 2. Starting small. People frequently criticize small talk. It's boring, formulaic, repetitive, and bland, but it's also a useful conversation technique. If you know how to use it, small talk will be your best friend in any social situation. Because as boring as small talk can be, it's difficult to dive right into deeper, more significant subject matter. Most of the time, jumping into big talk will make people feel awkward or uncomfortable. They don't know you well enough to share personal opinions or values, and that's why you need to open the conversation in a way that facilitates social chemistry. As you build your rapport, learning little bits about how the other person talks and acts, you can dive into deeper subjects. So how do you use small talk to get the conversation rolling? Well, small talk is like a funnel. You start with a wide general subject, and then you gradually narrow down the conversation until you're talking about something meaningful and specific. Many successful socialites start their funnel with a vague opener. Subjects like the weather, the venue, sports, or travel, they're all topics that anyone will recognize. But the beauty of these topics is their flexibility. Once you start a conversation about travel, you can spin that conversation in any direction you want. Experienced conversationalists will use small talk to lead the other person toward a specific subject. For example, let's say you're starting a company overseas and you want to drum up some business. How do you insert your company into the conversation smoothly and naturally? Well, you start by talking about travel. Exchange stories about trips or vacations. Narrow the subject matter to one country, then between stories, casually insert your company into the flow of the conversation. And just like that, you've turned small talk into big talk while connecting with a complete stranger. So pick a subject that you want to talk about and reflect on what general subjects could lead the conversation where you want to go. You don't need to rehearse everything you say, but a loose idea turns this useful strategy into a foolproof plan of action. Number 3. Discussing similarities. So what if you want to initiate small talk, but you don't want to talk about anything in particular? What if you're more interested in building a connection or a friendship? Well, then you can always kickstart a conversation by talking about things that you have in common. Now, obviously, you don't know the other person very well, otherwise you wouldn't need a conversation starter. But let's assume you're talking to a stranger or maybe an acquaintance you met a long time ago. How do you find something in common with a person you know nothing about? Instead of looking for shared interests or goals, just think about your general surroundings. For example, you two are standing in the same building. You may be attending the same event or listening to the same speakers. You might be wearing the same style of shirt or a similar brand of watch. If you look at surface-level details, you can pinpoint a surprising number of similarities between you and a complete stranger. And once you've found those similarities, use 1 or 2 details to get your conversation going. Talk about the building or the event. Ask them where they got their shirt or the watch you have in common. With this strategy, you get people talking, but you also develop an instant connection built upon commonalities. So no matter what you have in common, those similarities will bring you closer together. Number 4. Asking for help. Let's talk about a riskier approach that creates some of the strongest instant connections between strangers. To bond with someone in a matter of moments, try asking them for a favor. But you can't ask for any favor in the world. If you ask for too much, they may feel uncomfortable, resentful, or simply annoyed. The key is to shrink your favor down to a simple, easy task that anyone could do right away. You might ask, "Excuse me, could I borrow a pencil?" Or maybe, "Could you point me toward the nearest restroom?" These are tiny favors that require very little effort, but that's why they work. People are willing to do tiny favors for complete strangers, and it's those favors that bond the two of you together. Why? Well, because we make physical, mental, and emotional investments in the people we help. If you lend someone a pencil, you become physically linked to that person. If you direct someone to the nearest restroom, a little part of you feels responsible for their well-being. In small psychological ways, asking for favor forces someone to care about you. And once that happens, a conversation becomes a whole lot easier. After doing someone a favor, people will be much more receptive to what you have to say, and they'll recognize you as someone familiar. In a crowd full of strangers, any kind of familiarity, no matter how small, works tremendously in your favor. Number 5. Offering services. If you don't want to ask for a favor, you can stimulate the same connection by offering a favor. Alright, let's say you see someone who looks lost or confused. They're standing in the center of a busy room, trying to figure out where to go. Most people would just mind their own business. That's why offering your services can create an instant bond between you and a stranger. You might say, "What are you looking for? Maybe I can help you." Or, "Are you lost? This place can be really confusing." Both of these approaches validate the other person's feelings while lending a helping hand. The other person will perceive you as empathetic and friendly because you went out of your way to help their situation. Not only is this an act of kindness, but it's a wonderful foundation for any new connection. Offering your services makes an incredible first impression while binding the two of you together. You'll quickly develop an emotional bond which leads to conversation and maybe even friendship. Number 6. Fielding opinions. Have you ever asked for a stranger's opinion? This one sounds intimidating, right? But it's actually much easier than it sounds. To perform this strategy, we're going to blend a couple of tricks that we've already talked about. First, you're going to open the conversation with a question, but not just any question. You want to ask a harmless, accessible question that anyone can answer. We learned about this strategy at the beginning of the video, but this strategy serves another purpose. Asking for someone's opinion is similar to asking for help. Not only are you opening the conversation with a simple, natural question, but you're solidifying your connection with a favor or investment. So what kinds of questions achieve both strategies at the same time? Well, if you want someone's opinion, don't ask about appearances or controversial subjects. You shouldn't pry about their values or anything that might be sensitive. Instead, focus on universally positive topics like food, music, or movies. These subjects are harmless and useful in any context. Whether you're at a party or a conference, asking for someone's opinion will get the conversation rolling. Number 7. Keeping it simple. We've talked about several different openers that you can use in different contexts, but there's one strategy that beats all the others. And it's the easiest one on this list. If you want to start a conversation with anything, just walk up and introduce yourself. Yeah, I know it sounds simple, but the truth is, most questions and gimmicks are more awkward than you expect. In theory, they sound good, but unless you're experienced, they can make the conversation uncomfortable in seconds. So don't overthink it. Don't rely on tricks or rehearsed lines. Find someone you want to talk to, be confident, and introduce yourself. Before you know it, the conversation will get going and the two of you may become fast friends. Oh, there is one thing you should keep in mind. Unlike the other items on this list, this approach doesn't give you a topic to open the conversation. Once you say hello, shake hands, and tell someone your name, you have to think of something to say next. In this situation, try using another one of the strategies on this list. Ask for their opinion or a small favor. Bring up a general subject for a bit of small talk, or find something you two have in common. All of these strategies work well together. One builds off of the other to create a lively, personable conversation that everyone will enjoy. So don't be afraid to keep it simple. Make your approach, shake their hand, and tell them your name. You don't have to do or say anything complicated. A simple introduction will almost always do the trick. Hey, thank you for watching Top Think, and be sure to subscribe because more incredible content is on the way.